Hello there to all my friends at Lansdowne, Epworth and Hanover Park. The story ninjas in the house. And well, with the story, of course. And the story starts with a little girl, rather quiet and shy, never spoke much. And right now I'm guessing you know that little girl just is not me. Our little girl's name is Bee. So let's find out what's happened in Bee's life that's worth sharing in a story. Well, Bee never spoke much and didn't have many friends, not even in a class. While she never spoke much, nobody spoke much to her. Bee just never thought she had anything interesting to say. Well, things all changed, as they sometimes do. And I know your curiosity has now been piqued. Well, Bee moved to a new house. Well, it was a new old house, let's say, with a huge attic filled with the most amazing and extraordinary and unusual things. All dusty old junk too. Well, somewhere in the far corner of this attic was a huge dusty old chest. It looked a bit like a magical treasure chest. A chest you would find in a movie. Well, Bee had to find out what was inside that chest. Like I'm sure you and I would too. Well, she scratched around and emptied out the chest, and right at the very, very bottom, she came across a huge leather-bound book with gold writing on its cover, filled with stories. And Bee dusted off the cover of this book. And very soon the book started to glow. Well, this was a special book. What do you think? Bee opened up the book. And yes, definitely, there were plenty stories. While she dusted the book down, tucked it under her arm, and hid it under her bed until her nighttime story time. Well, let's find out what happened next. Well, that night, after Bee had settled in, and her puppy had settled in down at the foot end of her bed, in his favorite little spot, she opened up the storybook, this huge old storybook, and started reading aloud. This was the only time that Bee was comfortable enough to read aloud, was to Puppy at bedtime story time. Well, she read aloud to Puppy because he didn't question or comment. Well, even if she asked him questions, he was quite the good listener. But oh, not on this night. Once Bee had read the first story, she heard another little voice. What an interesting book you found. It seems to be filled with the most amazing stories. You could quite imagine Bee's surprise at hearing another little voice in her room, coming from none other than the puppy at the foot end of the bed. Well, Puppy continued talking and telling her all sorts of interesting things and asking her oh so many questions too. Well, Bee could not resist and just had to ask Puppy, "So how come you talking?" Well, the dog answered, "Instead of just thinking about things, like I usually do. You do know that we have thoughts. Now I'm able to actually say it. And I think it must be your storybook." Remember I said that that storybook had a special glow to it. Well, Bee now took the book with her when she was out in the garden or went to play out in the woods or the park, and took the opportunity to read stories to every animal who would sit around her and sit long enough to hear a story. I think she wanted to check whether this book had something special about it, and it wasn't just Puppy. Well, soon enough, every single animal she read to told her about all the amazing things that they've been up to in their lives. Pretty interesting tales, too. A lizard said to her, "We all have experienced wonderful things in our lives, and we want the whole world to know. Can quite imagine what it's like being quiet for all that time, and now suddenly you have been given a gift to speak. Well, after a few weeks of reading stories and having conversations with all the creatures and animals around, insects and all kinds of creepy crawlies, yes, and all the animals in the gardens and the woods, Bee had then eventually misplaced the book. And with that went all the conversations she had with the animals. Bee felt pretty lonely now. She quite looked forward to those conversations, someone to speak to and to hear her too. Well, well, after missing that book and missing the chatting, she had a thought. She remembered what the lizard had to say. We all experienced wonderful things and we want to tell the world. She realized then that she never spoke much in class. She didn't speak much to her classmates or to any other children. Well, and she realized that they too must have incredible things that they've experienced and must have done lots of wonderful things too. So from that day on, you can quite imagine what happened. Bees started talking to her classmates, well, and listening to them too, to all of their stories. And soon enough, she had made many new friends. And she was learning so many new things from them too. Well, and this had me thinking, seeing we are celebrating Pentecost today, that language and communication is just so important. And let us remember that language can unite and connect. Language can unite and connect us all as we share the good news with those within and outside of this Lansdowne, Epworth and Hanover Park community. So that is the end of my story, and let us always allow our gift of words to unite us. And thank you.